So regarding the issue of wages, the question that often comes up is what is the right minimum wage? What is the appropriate minimum wage? And if you're going to raise minimum wage, how do you sort of um, curtail whatever negative impacts may come with that? Now I'm just talking about regular minimum wage. I'm talking about wages for um, your dry cleaner, your shopkeeper, your whatever, just whatever the job is in the context that takes on the a certain amount of money as that is paid at minimum wage level. So so while we're on that topic, we want to think about, what is it that when it comes to just the minimum wage for the most basic form of employment. What, when we talk about that, what is the complaints that we often hear? Some people will say, especially in the context of, certain countries, some people will say, well, the price of everything is just going to go up. When I go to the market and try to get this and that, then everything will just become more expensive, and there's no point in raising it because it'll just not the earners don't complain, but sort of the people that, and then maybe some of the ones who think about sort of the management of it, who are involved in that, often say that, often cite that that is not going to make a difference, that it's going to. And so this can be the case sometimes, actually, because if, say, for example, you know, I can in I'll talk in dollars because it's easier that way. So, for example, if somebody is making the equivalent of, say, they live not in the U.S. necessarily, they live somewhere where this is manageable. They're making the equivalent of $900 a month, and they live somewhere where that is a manageable um, level of income to live on, and you increase it from that to, say, $1,300 a month in that context. Well, so what could happen there then is if the everybody else involved in the economic condition of their lives, say the landlord, the market, the food market store, if everybody knows that that's what's happened, then they might say, oh, okay, well then, they might hike up their prices too, and then and that's what we end up calling, complaining that it causes inflation. It just causes prices to go up because once you say that, then everybody else increases their prices. And so in the life of that person, it doesn't really make a big difference as it's supposed to, because of everything that they are responsible for. They are responsible for looking out for, they are responsible for taking care of. If all those things, the price of their schooling, everything, if every all those things will go up simultaneously, then you haven't really done anything for them in raising it. It hasn't really made a difference. So, well, you know, you can always make the argument that it makes everybody better off, right? That, if everybody's making more there and they have more in their pocket, then then maybe in some sense they're still better off, like the purchasing of sort of maybe international exports or whatever. I don't know. But one thing that you can do to sort of control that, if what we want to do is assert some amount of control over that, one really useful approach to that is to kind of um, increase that amount, not only just in increments, but also just for certain workers or in certain sectors. So, for example, you can have an increase in wages that is decided, that is going to be for this year, for people in the healthcare industry, or doctors only, or nurses only, or people in the or teachers, or the thing that does, and the benefit of that, is that it prevents other prices from sort of artificially going up. So it scales things more on a level that allows it to, that just reflects the true price of things, which is what you want, and which is why we complain about inflation, because we feel it's like the unreasonable, or sort of like, you know just reactionary prices going up. And so if that goes, if it goes in that direction, where certain sectors or certain kinds of employment or certain segments are the ones where the prices get raised on, it doesn't necessarily cause inflation so much. Why? Because the if the landlord says, oh, I hear, these people are getting, everybody that's in this industry or in this segment of employment is getting an increase, so I'm going to raise my rent. Well, you can always say, I'm not in that. You can always say, I'm not a nurse, so my income isn't going up, or I'm not a whatever the case may be. So therefore, you can't base it on that. And so it has that effect. It has the effect that it doesn't trigger the simultaneous, the just instantaneous. Okay, well, if everybody's doing well, then it doesn't trigger that reaction as much, because you're doing it one at a time. You're kind of increasing the income of just certain segments of the employed population. Say, for example, like the teachers or the nurses or the whatever, and whatever the case may be. You're kind of you know taking on each segment, sort of piecemealing it that way. That is a more beneficial way to manage that. And so, of course, what's going to happen is that that's going to be a good period, a good time period for the people in that field. They're going to be, family members will be happy with them during that time. But then in the next few years, you might take on another segment, and then the next. It's just something to think about. Uh, a sort of more conscious way of handling that issue, so that it doesn't sort of give this instant trigger where everything else just goes up simultaneously. So it doesn't have that effect. An easy way to do that would be to kind of elect certain segments of employment or of industry to raise their wages with, and then move on to the next one, then move on to the next one. And that way, the prices of everything will just be able to more reflect the true price, and not just be artificially, become inflated, just in a reactionary manner. So that's something to think about, a way to sort of manage that. And that could be a more effective way approach than rent controls, than saying, okay, well, we're going to raise these wages, but you can't charge anybody more than this amount, or you can't charge anybody more than that amount. That's all. It seems a lot harder to manage, and just on an administrative level, but sort of sequentially and segmenting the raising of the of the wages in the first place, seems the sort of the easiest way that allows for good management. Yeah.